So welcome everyone to your live lesson today. Today, the exciting topic is going to be direct and reported speech, because this occurs in most essays that everyone is writing, and people are still managing somehow to get it wrong. Some people really don't know, but let me share a document with you and we'll be able to see what page it is going to be in your book we're looking at. It's actually going to be page 54 of your grey book 7. We're using direct and indirect speech to inform. Okay, let's go to the document. This one. Okay. Right, using direct and indirect speech to inform. Okay, good. Chapter 2.8, online news reports. Okay. So let's have a brief look at when, why, where, and how do you use direct and indirect speech. In this particular chapter of your book, you are going to, on page 54, 5-4, we're going to be looking at that briefly. In a news report, a journalist only includes the most important words someone says to convey information. So maybe someone wants to talk about everything they did. They got up in the morning, they brushed their teeth, they washed their face, they combed their hair, they put on their clothes. But no, we don't want to talk about all of that. We just want to say, I got up and I went to school, because you want to summarize things and keep it short. Because a journalist, of course, only has so much space. He can only write so many words. Okay, so if the most important words someone says is to convey information. Okay, we don't want dull, boring details. On the other hand, sometimes the journalist has to sum up the important points that someone has said. So he has to do a bit of a summary. Okay, and summarizing details, as we all know, is not so easy. So if you have to do some summarizing, you really need to know your piece of paper and all the words quite well. But just to go back to basics to start off with, remember, punctuation marks used for direct speech are known as speech marks, inverted commas, or quotation marks. So these three terms can be used interchangeably. So if someone tells you to use inverted commas, it's the same as him telling you to use speech marks or quotation marks. Okay, all three terms are correct. Okay, so if someone's speaking, that's what you must use. Speech marks, inverted commas, or quotation marks. All three terms are correct. So let's look, what do the speech marks look like? They can either be double inverted commas, so there's two little bits there and there, or single inverted commas, where you've got one or one. But keep it constant. If you start with two for your inverted commas, keep on doing that. Don't change to one and go back to two. Okay. Right. So that's what you must use, your punctuation marks for direct speech. And they're known as speech marks, inverted commas, or quotation marks. They can be double inverted commas or single inverted commas. Okay, I think most people know that, although saying that, I don't see it in some essays. Right, let's look at an example here. An apple a day keeps the doctor away. There's some direct speech, which means the words actually spoken by someone. Let's look at the example, direct speech. Mom said, an apple a day keeps the doctor away. We've got full punctuation marks there. Mom said, comma, open inverted commas, capital letter. Very important capital letter when you start speaking. An apple a day keeps the doctor away. Full stop. It's a proper sentence. You need to punctuate it and then close inverted commas. All right, if I was a reporter and I had to report that, I would be saying, my mom said that an apple a day would keep the doctor away. So a few little changes you have to make. You always begin reported speech with that. My mom said that. My mom argued that. My mom indicated that an apple a day would keep the doctor away. So I've changed the verb tense as well so that it makes sense. We're going to look at that a little bit further on, okay? Let's go down a bit. Just for those who may have somehow forgotten, when you're punctuating direct speech, start with the name of the person who's speaking. Mom said. Then you put a comma after the word said or reported or whatever word you're going to use there. No, someone's just asked me about that there. If it's in reported speech, my mum said an apple a day. There's no commas in the reported speech, okay? Direct speech, mom said, comma, place a comma before the speech begins, open the speech marks before writing the words spoken, close the speech marks at the end of the speech with a full stop inside the speech marks, or a comma if perhaps the speech is to be continued further. You write the spoken words as a sentence, so it must begin with a capital letter and then with either a full stop, question mark, or exclamation mark. And if it's somebody speaking, it's always about me, I, my, mine. Everything is in the first person. So that's if it's direct. If it's reported or indirect speech, you're going to have to change that. But we'll look at that just now. So there we go. Punctuation of direct speech, comma, mom said, open inverted commas, an apple a day keeps the doctor away is my sentence, full stop. I'm not writing anything else. And then close your inverted commas. But had I wanted to use single inverted commas, I could have, okay? But now that I'm writing it with doubles, I must keep that on the whole piece of writing I'm doing. So to reiterate, you're punctuating direct speech, and reported speech is just like a normal sentence. You've got no inverted commas whatsoever. My mom said that an apple a day would keep the doctor away. You see, capital letter to begin, full stop to end. Okay, let's have a quick look at the punctuation, which there's very little. Introduce the speech with said that, stated that, explained that, whatever word you're going to use. And it's good to use different ones, of course, to make your writing more interesting. But you've got to refer to the speaker in the third person. Not I, me, my. It's he, she, his, her, its, whatever, okay? And write verbs referring to the speaker in the third person. So going back to the example, I'm talking about she. My mom said that an apple a day would keep the doctor away. Okay. Third person when you're using reported or indirect speech. That's what you have to remember. So you punctuate your direct speech. Punctuation of reported or indirect speech is just per normal sentence punctuation. Right. Now, words that change when you convert direct speech to reported speech. Okay, a lot of verb changes, and there's also some adverbial time type things you have to change as well. And this is what can make it quite difficult for people. Let's look at a direct speech. John said, I eat apples. Okay, so there we've got our punctuation, comma, open inverted comma, capital letters, full stop, close inverted commas. Now I'm going to report what he said in my writing. John said that he ate apples. Okay, third person. Third person. I don't say John said that I eat apples, because that makes no sense. John said that he ate apples. Okay, so there we go. From one, I eat apples, to he ate apples. It must go to the third person. Here's another tense, slightly tense change. John said, I am eating apples. I am eating apples. Comma. John said, comma, open inverted commas, full stop, close inverted commas. Go back to the reported speech now. John said that he was eating apples. So that's third person again. Third person, because we're reporting what he said. Okay. Let's look at the other next tense change here. John said, comma, open inverted commas, I was eating apples. Full stop, close inverted commas. We're going to report what John said. John said that he had been eating apples. So look at the verb tense changing. I was eating becomes he had been eating. So this is where things can get tricky. Right, going on to the past tense. Again, reported speech. John said, comma, open inverted commas, I ate apples. Close inverted close the sentence, full stop, and inverted commas. John said that he had eaten apples. Okay, so past tense just becomes a past perfect. Okay, I ate apples. John said that he had eaten apples. And finally, going back to the present tense, we can actually keep things in the present tense sometimes. John says, I eat apples. John says that he eats apples. Okay, so it depends if you're reporting something. You can keep it in that present tense, so the verb might not change, but that's not often that happens, okay? So everything in the direct speech is always punctuated properly, comma, open inverted commas, capital letters, full stops, closing inverted commas. Just missing out on some of these things will lose you marks in the Cambridge exams or progression tests. As you know, they do not give you half marks, so it's all got to be right, or one little thing wrong and you lose a point. Okay, so you'll need to be very careful like that. Now, someone's asked the question, should we call it indirect speech or reported speech? It's really up to yourself. There doesn't seem to be any way in particular, but sometimes, particularly when we're talking about writing a report, it's better to talk about reported speech, because I think that gives you a better idea of what you're doing. You're reporting what somebody says. So reported speech is possibly nicer to say than indirect speech. Okay, but you need to know what both terms mean, because the exam question might say change to indirect speech or change to reported speech. So as long as you know both, you're fine. Okay, let's go down. Some verb tense changes. That's just what we've looked at now. If you've got will, it would become would. Can becomes could. Have to becomes had to. Must also becomes had to. And may would become might. Other little modal verbs like should, could, would, might, ought to, there's no change. Okay. John said, I ought to eat apples. And if we put that into reported speech, we would say, John said that he ought to eat apples. So those little mole verbs really don't change. Okay. Let's see. Oh yes, here's another little example. I must go to school today becomes, I said that I had to go to school today. So must becomes had to. I might eat an apple today. There's no change. I said that I might eat an apple today. So there's your direct speech. I must go to school today. And your reported speech. I said that I had to go to school today. Or if we had to report it ourselves, we could have said, he said that he had to go to school today. I might eat an apple today if we had to report that about someone else. He said that he might eat an apple today. Okay. If you've got any questions on that, you can put it into the chat box. So it's just really making sure you know your punctuation. You know that. You won't lose marks for that, because that's a silly thing to lose marks on. You've been looking at that kind of punctuation for years now in writing and reading. Reported speech, trickier, definitely trickier, because you've got to change I, the first person, into the third person, and you've got to check your verb tenses. Okay? So that's the main things to remember at the moment. I don't think there's any questions just now. So let's go on to the next page. Now, here's the other, where it also gets tricky, the other words that can change include. If I say yesterday in a direct speech, we've got to change that to the day before. Okay? I came home yesterday. We would have to report that by saying he came home the day before. Today would have to become that day. He said that day he was going to watch soccer. Okay. Tonight would change to that night when I'm reporting it. Tomorrow would become the next day or the following day. Last night would have to become the night before. If I'm talking about last week, last month, or last year, it's going to have to become the week before, the month before, or the year before, and you're reporting what that person said. Same if they're talking about next week, next month, or next year. They would change to the following week, the following month, the following year. Okay? And just little words that would change. Now has to become then. Here becomes there. This becomes that. These become those. I, as you know, changes to he or she, the third person. We would become they. We are going to town. They, it has to be third person. Talking about my must become third person, his or her, and our, of course, would become their. Okay, so it's really like adverbial phrases of time that would change, and these small little words, prepositions, pronouns. Okay, so that's what makes things quite tricky when you're directly converting direct speech into reported speech. Right, let's take a look at your book on page 55. If you look at number 4, it says, rewrite these sentences as indirect speech. Okay. Looking at the things we know now, A is Precious said Ariana's thoughtfulness is an inspiration. Okay, so what would be the first things we would do to change the direct speech? But you see here the inverted commas are single inverted commas, which is fine. What word would come after Precious said? Which word comes after said when we're turning that into reported speech? Quickly write it on your web chat there. Precious said, what's the missing word? See if anybody can get it. Somebody who's a quick typist. It's easy peasy, lemon squeezy. Yes, well done. Thank you, Anzet. The word is that. If we had to change this into indirect or reported speech, Precious said that Ariana's thoughtful. Are we going to keep is or are we going to change the verb? We're talking about in the past. Would we keep the verb is or what would we change that verb to? Anyone? Let's see if you can get it up on your Zoom chat. Precious said that Ariana's thoughtfulness. Yes, yes, yes. Come along. Anybody? Yes, great. Talendran got it. Desiree got it. And Adam got it. Was. So we changed the verb. Precious said that Ariana's thoughtfulness was an inspiration. There we go. So we've changed that sentence into reported speech, and it wasn't too difficult, was it? Precious said that Ariana's thoughtfulness was an inspiration. Okay, right, let's look at sentence 2. It's going to be very similar. Look again, what reporting words are you going to use? What verb tense are you going to change? The sentence is 4B, Rose said the wedding brought back many happy memories. Okay, so that's the direct speech. That's what she said. Rose said, oh, the wedding brought back many happy memories. Woo! Okay, we want to turn that into reported speech, and we're going to say, yes, Rose said that the wedding brought back. Oh, look at the verb. Are we going to change that? Rose said that the wedding had brought back many happy memories. Yes, we could have it that way. Rose said that the wedding brought back many happy memories, but you could also change it as part of the exercise to Rose said that the wedding had brought back many happy memories. So pay attention to your verbs, and there's no time things to look at in these two examples, so they're not too bad. Right, they've got another example down the bottom here. I asked a number 6, write 2 versions of the speaker's words. Now, probably in the answer book, they won't give you an answer for that because lots of people possibly write different answers. Okay, so it was, I asked everyone in my class to contact their older relative to see if they had kept their wedding dresses. Okay, so we're going to, one paragraph should include direct speech and the other should use reported speech for a news report. Okay, as usual, you're writing a news report. Okay, so the first one we could say, if I had been writing about this whole thing, we could say, he said to the whole class, comma, open inverted commas, capital, can you all please contact your older relatives to find out whether they have kept their wedding dresses or not? Question mark, it's a question, close inverted commas. So that's one way we could put that in as direct speech. Maybe you could have put in another way, but it's going to be right if you've done it as direct speech. That's why sometimes they can't have all the answers in the books because People think slightly differently, but the answer is not wrong. Okay, so it's a bit of a subjective thing there. Right, so that was a direct speech for that one. And we've changed that into reported speech. He asked if everyone in the class would contact their older relatives to find out whether they had kept their wedding dresses or not. Okay, we haven't even got the word that in there, because it's really about a question this time. He asked if everyone in the class would contact their older relatives to find out whether they had kept their wedding dresses or not. So we could also have said he had asked if everyone in the class would contact their older relatives. Okay, so again, that's a good one. Rose said that the wedding brought back many, many memories. Okay, looking at those two, and oh, I hope you guys are not like this now. It's been too much for you, like a little doggy falling asleep from exhaustion from listening. Right, here's some other examples of reporting verbs. Reporting verbs are the words like said, say, etc. So there's some more that you might want to use in some of your essays. If you're going to do dialogue, here's just a couple for you. You could have admit, advise, he advised that, he agreed that, oh, he apologized for doing something. Remember, certain verbs always take certain prepositions. He begged me to whatever. Okay, deny. He denied that he was the culprit. We've reported that. And if we put that into direct speech, he denies I am the culprit. Sorry. Encourage. He encouraged everyone to do things. Insist. Promise. Refuse. Remind. Mom reminded me to eat an apple that day. Say, said, obviously the most used. State or stated, also used in news reports a lot. Same as suggest, suggested, or warn. He was warned that he could not come to school after 10 o'clock. Okay, so those are reporting verbs that you can also use in your writing.